Are you good at social media? Maybe you've got a few followers and some likes on your Facebook posts. Today I interviewed the Zen Master of Social Media Marketing, Shama Hyder, about what it takes to propel your marketing and transform your brand in the digital age. Shama has been honored at both the White House and the United Nations as one of the top 100 young entrepreneurs in the country and has shared the speaking stage with everyone from the Dalai Lama to President Obama. We talked about what it took to start a business based around a technology that no one knew would ever work, why everyone should leverage their digital powers and their social media lives for real life opportunities, and what it's like managing one of the top social media marketing firms in the country. So, if you are ready to learn from the master and step up your social media game, sit back and enjoy. Hello everyone, today I am extremely excited to welcome Shama Hyder to the show. She is a visionary strategist for the digital age, a web and TV personality, and best-selling author. She is the award-winning CEO of the Marketing Zen Group, a global online marketing and digital PR company. She has been aptly dubbed the Zen Master of Marketing by Entrepreneur Magazine and the Millennial Master of the Universe by FastCompany.com. Shama's been honored at the White House, the United Nations, and is one of the top 100 young entrepreneurs in the country. She's the best-selling author of The Zen of Social Media Marketing, and her new book, Momentum, How to Propel Your Marketing and Transform Your Brand in the Digital Age, is an incredible bestseller. So we are very glad that she's taken time out of her busy schedule to be with us here today. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Brendan. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So in your own words, if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So in my own words, I would say that I wear a lot of hats. I'm a serial entrepreneur, author of The Zen of Social Media Marketing and Momentum. The Zen is now on its 4th edition. I run the Marketing Zen Group, which is a web marketing digital PR firm, as you mentioned. And I've just launched a new business with my co-founder, Jared Skinner, and it's called Made. And it's Made Design. It's a physical design studio. So lots of interesting things. And hey, I'm wearing multiple hats, from talking to the media or connecting with cool people like you, working with our clients. Every day looks a little different.
Awesome. So can you share with us how you got into the social media field? Because it seems like your book came out before social media was even like and you were already the master of it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And yeah, The Zen of Social Media Marketing was one of the first books on the topic. And, it's crazy to me that it's in its 4th edition now and that colleges use it to teach the subject, because when I was graduating, getting out of school, people still said, what's Twitter? What's the social media thing? No one really got it. The landscape looks so different. So yeah, it's amazing how far we've come in like less than a decade. Kind of blows my mind sometimes. So yeah, I got my start in grad school. So I have a master's in organizational communication and technology from the University of Texas at Austin. And actually just spoke at my Alma Mater, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, when I graduated, I did my thesis on Twitter. So a big part of it was looking at social media, how people use it. Remember, this is super early days. So Twitter had like maybe 2,000 users. Totally different landscape. Everyone followed each other. Instagram didn't exist. Snapchat didn't exist. So really just very different days, I think, for social media. And yeah, that's how I got my start. I thought I would go out and try to get, a job, which is what you're supposed to do. It's the right thing to do. And it's funny because I tell the story now at my keynotes and people always laugh. And it's just funny looking back because I think, I was looking for a job in the space. The biggest problem was the space didn't exist. Like people said, what's social media? This, again, just didn't understand the landscape. And so I started my own company. With Marketing Zen initially. We're arguably one of the first social media firms in the world because, like you said, there just wasn't anything there, which is always nice, right? To be sort of a market leader, just be sort of first in the field. They learn so much through our experience. As agencies go, we just have so much experience now from what to do, what works, what doesn't, and so forth.
That is exciting. Now, what were some of your biggest challenges in getting started and trying to convince a client that they needed your services when they didn't know what it is that you did?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because I think people were beginning to understand social media. And I say this, but it's so vast and people are still understanding what that means and so forth, right? So I think the biggest challenge was educating people for sure. One of the key lessons I learned, though, was make sure that you're going after the right audience. And sometimes you have to pivot your audience. And what I mean by that is when I first started Zen, we really looked at big companies. So I thought it would be like the corporate guys, right, that decided that they wanted to, be innovative and cool. And what I found is, and this could have been, with the recession in 07, 08, big companies pull back, right? They want to retain market share. Innovation is not on top of their list. It's not like, let's get crazy and try interesting things. So I think that was kind of interesting and difficult. Like, oh, okay. But I think switching to small businesses and going to small businesses and saying, hey, do you want to try this? And they're like, hey, does this get customers in my door? Yeah, I'm game, right? So a big switch, just initially my first lesson in the business world is you go where the audience is. And initially your audiences were small businesses. They were a lot more open. They had a lot less red tape. They were like, great, let's try this, see what works. And so it was a lot of fun. Some of my first clients, we had so much fun together. And of course now we work with a lot of the bigger guys, right? We work with like the Chase Business and the DFW Airport and just all like so many different brands, Mary Kay, like so many brands that would be household names. And so it's nice because I feel like some of the bigger corporations, it took them longer, as it does, but they eventually obviously came on board. And we've just grown at and now it's crazy because I feel like I'm doing that with Made in some sense, trying to explain to people how the physical realm is changing, right? Because with Zen, what we do for digital spaces, Made does for physical ones.
Exactly. That is cool. Now, fun question here. Since you've been like the social media maven, is there any social media platforms that you thought were going to be big, but then sort of fizzled out or didn't do what you expected over the last decade?
Yeah, I don't know if there are any platforms like that. I feel like I've had a pretty good sense of where things are headed. But I will tell you one thing I didn't think would take off and totally did, and I was wrong about. I think that's kind of what you're asking, right? So podcasting. I guess in my head I thought podcasting would just naturally evolve to this video. Like, why not? But I was so wrong because clearly podcasting has, just skyrocketed. So I thought that was going to be a transitional thing, but no, podcasting is very much its own endeavor.
Yeah, that's one thing that, we've been listening to podcasts for years and it's just been this weird little niche for so long, but in just the last, 18 months, it's gone and everywhere. Everyone has a podcast, it seems like.
Yeah, but no, I saw the advent of Snapchat, saw the advent of LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is one of the smartest social networks. That's the one to watch. And honestly, that's where I spend sort of most of my time these days as far as networks go.
I totally agree. It's been interesting as we've been growing our brand through the different social media channels as well. And like you said, it's a more intelligent platform for a lot of things. I know Facebook's got a lot of algorithms that happen and things here, but LinkedIn really does a better job, I think, of showing me the things that I want to see and still tying in the people aspect rather than sharing videos that don't have to do with anything.
Yeah, I think the business aspect of LinkedIn, right, as a professional network is definitely growing. And the reach is awesome.
Awesome. Now,
I'm really a fan.
Now, in terms of networking, I know you've had a chance to speak with some incredible people. You've traveled all over the world. Would you have some tips for, nurturing that network after you've built it? How do you keep in touch or keep all those points active, or do you just let it go once you meet people?
Yeah, it's impossible to keep in touch with every single person, right, as much as you'd like. And so I think, as human beings, your capacity in that sense is generally limited. But that's why I really like LinkedIn, because when I do meet someone, I add them. And LinkedIn does a good job in sort of fostering that, right? Someone switched a job, check out their profile or updates or see what's new. So yeah, I think you have to proactively set aside time to engage in that way. And for me at this point in my career, it really is one to many, which like a video interview like this is great because next time someone asks me a question about how I got started or asks me some of these questions, I can say, hey, I did this interview, like here's all this information. So I think that helps me scale because a lot of the questions I do get are similar, right? Over time with people who discover and they're like, oh my God, I want to learn more. And I'm like, okay, well, here's a library of resources. And so for me, I see that role as like constantly helping educate.
Exactly. I totally get that. Now, you have been scaling and growing and building your business. You now have a team of people. And as you grow, the communication wires start to get crossed. So what are some of your ways that you've been able to keep, avoid bottlenecks and keep your team all in the same loop communication wise?
Yeah, great question. So I think the great thing is we have the team is getting bigger and bigger. We've got VPs in place. And so the teams don't respond to one, right? So we have the leadership chain, and then those VPs report to our COO, who reports to me. And they work very closely, the VPs and the COO. And so the information gets disseminated that way. And I think that's a really nice structure because, for me, I love that our VPs and our leadership, they care so much about their teams. So the teams still end up being really small and close-knit because they're, so it's almost like micro little businesses within sort of a macro structure.
Gotcha. Now, I think something that, a big issue in today's a lot of communication workplace is the different generations, baby boomers and millennials and Gen Z.
Sure.
So do you have different generations in your team, or how has that really worked out?
We do. And it's really funny because actually keynote on one of my topics is millennials and marketing and generational differences. And what I find sort of fascinating about that world in general is that, there are generational differences in how people work and communicate and so forth. We do. On our team alone. And I think my perspective is interesting because I am a millennial and I hire millennials and I manage them. And, we have clients. It's interesting to be able to get all sides of that coin. So yeah, we have such a diverse team. We have a lot of parents on our team. We have Gen Xers, we have baby boomers. I think it's really neat to sort of see how everyone works together. And, I find that contrary to sort of popular beliefs or what the media might have you believe, even my baby boomer employees, or when we do initiate new technology, are super excited. They want to learn. They're like, yeah, let's do this. So I think that enthusiasm is there across the board. But then again, you wouldn't be working for a digital agency unless you had that, right? So I think in all fairness, we do attract people who love technology and love sort of innovation and where the world's headed.
I totally agree with that. And I think one of the cool things, we've got to speak to a lot of social media influencers. And one of the things that is unique is the fact that these people who influence so many often spend less time on social media than the people who are just staring and absorbing the information on their phone all day. So how would you rate, the amount of time that you spend creating content versus the time you have actually consuming it?
Yes, that's a good question. So I'm very particular in what I consume. I have things like I have my feed set up. I read certain publications that I'm a fan of. Like I love the stuff McKinsey and Bain and some of these consulting companies put out. HBR, right, the Harvard Business Review, so Forbes. But I would say you're right. I spend about 80% of my time content creation and 20% really sort of engaging and that's, I'm not even counting the books I read and things like that. I'm just talking social media. So yeah, it's funny because I don't have Snapchat, for example. We use it for our clients, but I don't have a Snapchat account. I've done Snapchat takeovers, like Inc. and speaking of Inc. 5000. I'm happy to use the platform in that way, but I'm not the person who says like check out my meal or like here's that's not the way. And what I tell people is social media isn't meant to be used as, you have to use it for what works for you. And for me, it's a platform to share my expertise, my passion, hopefully add value to the global broader audience that we serve. So I really sort of stick to that.
Gotcha. Now, in your opinion, how has the prevalence of social media and online communication affected day-to-day and face-to-face communication between people?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think we as a society are changing, right? And we're trying to figure out ways. And so what I think is really sort of the next wave is this idea of tech mindfulness. Right? To think about like what we're doing even with Made, we're creating spaces which integrate technology, but also technology in a way, because a lot of people think AI and sort of this world is a substitute for that. It's not. It's never going to take away, from the interactions. And that's what I think about why video does so well. It's the closest thing you can get to face-to-face human energy connection. So yeah, I don't think any of that's going away anytime soon. I think that, communication becomes more important than ever before. It's not a soft skill. People always think about communication. Oh, that's a soft. No, it's really not. In fact, in a world where algorithms and computers and technology is doing so much of the hard skills, this becomes paramount because someone has to be able to take that, explain it, make sense of it. So I think things like creativity, communication, these things that we've considered soft skills for so long are really actually going to be the paramount skills of the future.
I 100% agree. And I know you've listed a few there, but what would you say are the top 2 or 3 skills that you would credit to your own success?
Oh, yeah. So I think there's a couple of things that I think are good sort of muscles for anyone to develop, right? I would say for me personally, one's been curiosity. I've always been very curious as a child and certainly as an adult. I always want to know how things work and, why things are a certain way. And I'm fascinated by so many things like history and literature. So just having a broad, I think, spectrum of interests has certainly been helpful. The second would be focus. I can be very disciplined, get things done when I need to. I think that's certainly helped from going for me, it's not about how many great ideas can I have in a day. It's how much do I have time to focus on in any given day. And that's important. It's very important because you can there's so much you can do. And I love that. I love that we live in a world where there's so much opportunity and just amazing. I just think we're so blessed. I'm a fan of this era, right? But I think the tougher part is figuring out where should you devote your focus and what are you going to be consistent with, because consistency is not very sexy. It's not a sexy word, right? But it's so important. Whatever you do, it's the consistency of it that gets you results. It's not the one-off. Like Brandon, you doing these videos, it's not going to be this one video or another video. It's the series of producing content. So people are like, hey, we know Brandon does good stuff. He brings people that we find are interesting and engages with them in a great way. It's good use of time, right, if you will. So I think it's that consistency that's really important. And then the ability to sort of be an editor, which I feel really lucky that I was never a perfectionist, not in school. I've always been it's better to be 90% good and then iterate and make it better than aim for that 100% because it's a moving target. In the world we live in, there is no perfection. And, I would see sometimes, and I've had these talks with clients who'll spend literally months on trying to decide internally which shade of magenta is going to be right for their website. And I'm like, guys, there's really no wrong answer here, but by the time you wait, the technology is going to have changed. So let's make a decision and let's start, doing things. And beauty is you can always change it in the future. So
That's exactly it. I like that you mentioned so many characteristics there. And the one that really hit home with us is consistency, because everyone wants, the instant success, the overnight everything. And they look at this social media age and going viral, but it doesn't happen that way. It's that concentrated effort over time.
It is. And I can't tell you how many people sort of still discover me and they're like, oh my God, this is so cool. You have so much content. I'm like, yeah, I've been at this for a decade and that's how.
That's the secret. And it's funny, as we've been interviewing so many people that have been in their space for a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, and the pervading theme is pick one thing, learn everything that you can about it, and produce content around that. And if you stick with it for that amount of time and produce quality content, you'll be somewhere at the end of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Awesome. Now, do you have someone that you would consider a mentor or a coach as you've been growing and building your business?
I have lots. I don't feel like there's one. I learn from so many people. I have different people who help me with different areas of my brand, my business. So I would say for me, that's been paramount, is finding people who are the best at what they do and being able to learn from them in that space. So I wouldn't say that I have one, there's so, if I have a question about funding, I go to someone different. If I have a question about publishing my next book, I have a whole separate team of people I rely on that.
Awesome. Now, what would you say is one of the toughest lessons you've had to learn in building your business over the last decade?
One of the toughest lessons, and this is funny, is to be able to think bigger, which it seems kind of odd for me to say that, I guess, because people are like, what do you mean? And I feel like, I could have thought even bigger when I started. And even now, I think I try to tell myself, what's stopping you from scaling this even more, right? Or what does bigger even look like? And I think for someone who moved to the US when I was 9, and, you know, very much that immigrant mentality that sort of your parents drill into you, and you learn to be scrappy and resilient and appreciate everything that's been given to you. I think part of that is just, I'm so grateful for all the opportunities I've had. It takes a proactive focus to say, okay, this is great and I'm grateful, but how can I think even bigger about something? And I've been really lucky that I've had colleagues and great people on the team. They're like, wow, you know, this could even be, this could be bigger. I'm like, yeah, that's true. So I think part of that is being able to have sort of that broadening that vision.
Awesome. Now, on the total flip side, do you have a favorite, you know, victory or win or success story that has been like one of the big pinnacles of your career?
Yeah, I mean, there's been quite a few things that I feel really grateful for. I think making the Forbes 30 under 30 list about 2 years ago was definitely a crowning. It was a really nice milestone, because I'm not the type of person that says, "Oh, this is great. High five, I'm done." That's but it was really nice to have that sort of recognition from a platform and publication I have a lot of respect for. And just to be able to be in that cohort of people and community. So yeah, I would say that was a really neat milestone.
Awesome. Now, do you have someone that as you've been growing and building that you would look to as an inspiration?
Just lots of different folks. I think for me, again, it's not so much like, are they successful in my field as an inspiration, but just what type of person they are, right? And so, like, 2 people that I continue to aspire to are one. I had a high school teacher named Michael Seeley who still teaches, and he's just an educator and a great dad and just a great human being. So every time I look at him, I'm like, wow, this, I really feel like he's living his life and being really true to who he is and giving back in such a way. And then my graduate advisor, Donna Ballard at UT, who studies organizational communication and time, and is just one of these women that I've looked to say, what does it mean to be a woman of color in the workplace, in the professional world, and just, learning, kind of just watching her and seeing how she holds herself in meetings or how she communicates her ideas. So I'd say in that way, those are the people that I really tend to respect.
Awesome. Now, you said you just recently went back to UT and gave a keynote speech.
Yeah.
And so how did that feel to actually go back and be the person on stage, sharing your story with everyone?
It was really cool. And one thing that was unexpected, and I look back to my school days and I was like, I was not that bright of a kid, clearly, because I got so many emails from students who were like, I just wanted to let you know how great that was and what that meant or how inspirational. And I thought that's just, that was so touching and refreshing. And and it was so much fun. Like I love the students. I love, I think that was such a fun being back on campus and being in that role, right? So yeah, I had a blast.
That's awesome. And I've seen clips and previews and some of your other speaking events. You're an awesome keynote presenter.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Now, has that been something that you've developed, or have you always been, the person on stage? Or
it's always been a strength. I would say it's always been, and people have inherent talents. Like, I'm not very good with numbers. I've just never. it's not a strength. Or music. Like, I couldn't find a note if it hit me. So I started. My weaknesses, my communication in public have also been decent. I competed in oratory competitions in high school, which I thought really helped, was great. I didn't do anything in college, and then when I got back in, it didn't start so much as I wanted to be on stage, but people had questions about social media and marketing. So I started, it's really sort of an educational platform, right? And I think over time, just with my personality and so forth, it's become like edutainment, which is great, and it's nice to sort of lead in that category.
Gotcha. Now, do you have any, pre-performance rituals before you get out there on stage to make sure you're practicing your best?
No, I'm usually running, I'm usually answering last minute client emails and talking with the team. And so, no, I wish there's just, because my life moves so fast, there's really not.
Awesome. So a few more questions to flip the book and talk about you a little bit. Do you have a favorite book or book recommendation for our viewers?
Yeah, so one of my favorite books is called Blue Ocean Strategy. And they actually just came out with another one that I'm just waiting to dig into. So the idea is how to differentiate, how to brand yourself in a marketplace that's really crowded, and that's a great concept.
Awesome. Now I know you have 2 books. So in terms of all the crazy things and busyness that you're doing, how in the world do you find time to write these books and revise one for now it's in its 4th edition?
So I think part of what makes it easy for me to create this content, and I say easy and I'll put that in air quotes, is that I share a lot of what I'm already doing. So it's less about creating, more about documenting. So sort of documenting, like, here's what's working with our clients, right? And so I think if I was writing fiction, it would be very different, but because this is what I'm seeing working, this is what I'm into all day long, I think that makes it a little easier.
Gotcha. Now, if you could have a conversation with anyone, past, present, future, fact or fiction, who would that be?
I'm sorry, I that question cut out just a little bit.
If you could have a conversation with anyone, past, present, future, fact or fiction, who would it be?
Past, present, or fiction? Yeah. Oh man, Albert Einstein.
Okay.
That might be sort of a pretty cliched choice, but I just find it fascinating to be like, what do you think of the world today? Or Jesus. I think it's kind of a cling on. Yeah. I'm curious to get sort of their take on the world today.
Awesome.
Where did we get it wrong?
Yeah. Where did things start to go awry here? Now, so what new projects, what new things are you working on in your world?
Well, I'm really excited about Made. Which is my latest venture, and I'm excited about physical spaces and what that's going to look like, because I think the office, the retail shop, all of this in 10 years is going to look dramatically different. In fact, I'm probably headed back to the Middle East very soon. We've done a lot of projects in the Middle East talking about what the future of some of these cities should look like. So I think there's just a fascinating world in that sense. And yes, I'm very excited about that. I'm excited about Momentum, my second book, which is going to go into paperback come January or February. So that's really neat. And yeah, so we have our hands full right now with the team and working on some really cool stuff that, of course, I'll be sharing through all our social channels.
Speaking of social, if our folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to find out what you're up to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could just Google my name, and there's plenty of social links that you could find to connect with, but choose your poison, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, happy to connect, happy to chat. And our websites are obviously marketingzen.com and made.design.
Awesome. So final question here. I know you're very busy. We'll let you get back to it. Do you have any final words of wisdom, or is there anything that you wish I had asked that you'd like to share?
Oh, I think your questions were fantastic. The only thing I'd highlight, I guess, is the ability to be an editor, right? Knowing that nothing is ever done, nothing's ever perfect, but sort of have to enjoy the evolution and continue to get better at what you're doing. And I think that's the most any of us can ask for.
Awesome. Shama, I really appreciate your time to be here. We've looked up to you. I've read your book. It is incredible. So it's one of those times where you get to meet the people on the other side. I bet you've been looking and putting on posters and things. So
I appreciate that. Well, thank you so much. I've enjoyed this conversation, and hopefully people watching it enjoyed it as well.
Absolutely. So thanks so much for joining us, and you have a fantastic day.
Thanks. Bye.
And that's a wrap. What did you think? Let us know your favorite tip that you learned. Tickle in my throat. And that's a wrap. What did you think? Let us know your favorite tip that you learned in the comments below. And if you know someone who's working on their social media or could use a little bit of advice in this arena, go ahead and be a pal. Send them this link. We all know that sharing is caring. I'm sure that they'll appreciate it. Below, I've included links to Shama's website, her book, her programs, and so much more. So if there's something that we've talked about and you want to find a bit more about it, I've included everything in the description box below to make it super easy for you. As always, click subscribe right down there in the corner so that you never miss a video, and turn on your YouTube alerts so you'll always get notified as soon as we upload a brand new video. Every Wednesday we've got expert interviews just like this one, Monday life lessons from TV shows, and Friday we've got personality breakdowns, so a little bit of something for everyone. And last but certainly not least, don't forget open enrollment is on our brand new Millennial Finally, last but not least, don't forget we've got open enrollment on our brand new course, Millennial Magnetism. Click the link in the description box below to see how you can unleash your inner awesome, be the most charismatic person in any room, and win people over in only 10 minutes a day. Until next time, ciao for now.